Yes, I move for nominal voting.
All right, the nominal vote on the motion of the Senator Dela Rosa to ratify the BICAM report. All those in favor will say yes, and those against will say nay. Nominal vote, proceed.
Roll call vote, honorable senators. Angara,
Yes.
Binay,
No.
Cayetano, abstain. De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
No.
Gatchalian, Go, Gordon,
Gordon?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I probably should my microphone. I vote no, Mr. President.
no. Hontiveros,
Nay.
Lacson, Lapid,
Yes.
Marcos,
Sorry, yes.
Pacquiao, Pacquiao,
Yes. Yes, Mr. President.
Pangilinan,
No.
Pimentel III,
Yes.
Poe,
No.
Recto,
No.
Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar,
Yes.
Zubiri.
I abstain.
Senate President Soto III.
I abstain. There are 11 affirmative votes, 8 negative votes, 3 abstention. The motion is lost.
Mr. President, I have a personal commitment to the Filipino people and to myself. I always try to have an open mind. I always try. I cannot, I try to set aside my biases. I try to set aside my personal feelings. But so let me begin by saying that during the plenary debates and the period of amendment, I was one of those who voted against the proposal to include a certain provision that gave the right for the firefighters to bear arms. And then the status is today, the chairman is reporting back that there is a similar provision now in the bicameral conference report. So obviously my position would be the same. But like I said, it's my duty to have an open mind. This is the chairman. I always give due respect to our chairperson. So I would like to ask the gentleman, let's read into the record, no, the proposal, and let's compare it to the provision, because just to fast track the process during our break, so off the record, His Honor was saying that the provision inserted is different. Is that correct? Different from what was voted down?
Yes, Mr. President.
Why is it different? Can His Honor explain to us? Can His Honor first, number one, explain to us what his objective was when we discussed this during the period of amendment, and then explain what happened in the BICAM that leads His Honor to take the position that it's different, and which is his basis for convincing me to change my vote.
Yes, Mr. President. First, the provision that was voted down by this August chamber in the plenary was the arming of the whole of the BFP personnel. Lahat po yun, Mr. President, armasan. So, it was voted down. Ang diferensya nito ngayon sa amendment na ipinasok ng lower house contingent during our BICAM is that hindi po armasan ang buong BFP, kundi one team lang po mag-create ng isang security and protection unit sa bawat regional office at city fire station, composed of 7 men per ship, 7 men. 7 lang po ang authorized na armasan doon sa estasyon na yun, Mr. President. So yun po ang malaking diferensya. And during the BICAM, we insisted the Senate version. But again, I have the understanding, being the chairman of the Senate panel, Senate contingent, that kaya nga BICAM para give and take at pag-uusapan kung anong pwedeng maipapalabas na final dito sa BICAM na ito. And the lower house contingent was very insistent on their compromise provision. Sabi na, compromise lang nga ito sa amin, hindi nga namin armasan yung buo. Pumayag na kami na hindi yung buo, one team lang sa bawat region at saka city ang pwedeng armasan. So baka pwede naman yung kami pagbigyan dito dahil yung buong Senate version naman ay tinanggap namin. Yung buong Senate provision, lahat ng provision ng Senate version, tinanggap namin, except ito lang sa amin. Baka pwede yung pagbigyan. So I talked to the conferees from the Senate, yung magkasamahan ko sa panel, and pumayag naman yung kasama ko doon sa BICAM. We agreed on that, Mr. President. Otherwise, if I find myself to be disloyal to the interest of this August body, then I should have not represented the bicameral conference committee, the Senate panel in that bicameral conference committee, Mr. President. But nakita ko po kasi na sabi nga, pag BICAM, give and take, para, kasi deadlock rin ang mangyayari, Mr. President, kung hindi ako papayag sa gusto nila, magkakaroon ng deadlock. So wala mangyari dito sa measure na pinopropose namin. But Mr. President, yung status nito ngayon, doon sa baba, sa lower house po, ay ratified na nila itong version natin na ito, Mr. President. But dito sa atin ay medyo nagkakaproblema lang tayo dito. But anyway, I am open to whatever the majority of us decides, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
The interpellation is still ongoing between
With the
Senator
indulgence, Mr.
Cayetano.
Yes, Mr. President, but
If
with the
Senator
indulgence
Cayetano
of
permits.
the good Senator Cayetano and the good sponsor, it's a matter, Mr. President, that involves this representation personally. With the
Go ahead.
indulgence of the two colleagues.
With the permission of
Thank
the
you,
two
Mr.
senators
President.
on the floor.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
rule on-
President.
On bicameral conference. Tingnan nyo, look at the rules.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to make something of record to correct a matter of fact. The good sponsor said that the members of the Senate contingent to the BICAM were consulted by him and agreed to this. Mr. President, I was a member of the Bicameral Conference Committee for the Senate on the part of the minority. I did not agree to the introduction of this amendment, which we had voted down in the Senate. And the reason that I did not agree to it, Mr. President, was because, as I communicated to our good chairman the morning itself of the BICAM meeting, I could not attend. Because, Mr. President, I need to tell the colleagues this. It was the anniversary of my late husband. And my children and I had scheduled to visit his
Brown out, sabotage.
Rotating brownout.
Mr. President, habang wala, kung hindi pa siya marinig si Senator Risa, Mr. President, I think majority of the House of the Senate panel agree with the House panel, Mr. President. Ang nagkataon lang na wala siya doon, kaya sinasabi ko kami lahat nag-agree dahil po absent siya doon sa BICAM meeting na yun, Mr. President, at kaming na nandun lahat ay we're in agreement na tanggapin namin yung proposal ng House panel, Mr. President.
Should I continue?
Hindi.
So,
Go ahead, Senator Cayetano, go ahead.
can I go ahead? Oh, well, okay, Senator Risa's back.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
President, I'm back. If I may, please.
Go
Mr.
ahead,
President.
continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Since I don't know where my signal was cut, just for the record, Mr. President, I was a member of the BICAM on the part of the minority, and I did not agree to this amendment. And the reason I did not agree, Mr. President, was I could not have agreed because, as I communicated to the chairman before the BICAM meeting, my children and I were going to visit my late husband's grave that same morning because it was his anniversary. But I was assured that I could continue with that schedule with my children, Mr. President, which we had scheduled before the BICAM meeting was scheduled, because as I explained to the good chairman, wala na pong contentious provision na ganyan about arming the BFP personnel in the Senate version. And then this happened, Mr. President. So just to make of record, what a personal family matter that I would not have needed to make of record, but just to correct that point of fact, I did not agree to that amendment, Mr. President, and I would not have agreed if only it were not done by my late husband that day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. President, alam ko majority ng membro ng panel ay nag-agree with the provisions inserted from the lower house panel, Mr. President. Hindi ko naman sinabi na kasama na doon si Senator Risa dahil wala man talaga siya, absent man siya doon sa aming bicameral meeting, Mr. President. So, wala po siya doon. Kaya sinabi ko, majority kami, nag-agree. Yeah, sir.
So, Mr. President, let me proceed. Where were we? I asked the gentleman if the provisions were the same, and he was explaining. No, so I heard his explanation. So let me take off from my personal experience. I was once a neophyte senator as well, and my understanding of parliamentary process is as follows. I think the best way I can explain it is by way of example. When I was a 6-year senator, no, actually 8 years. It was 2012. One of the most highly debated bills at that time, and maybe till now, you could say, in terms of the length of time it was on the floor, the number of years it took to pass it, and the interest of the whole nation, was the reproductive health bill. So I sponsored this measure no less than the Senate President interpellated me on many, many days. I think I cannot even remember if he had a part 3, part 4, or part 5. I just know that it was a never-ending part of interpellation. And before him was our then Senate President. The Senate President now was the Majority Floor Leader. So, majority or minority, Your Honor? I'm trying to recall. Majority. Majority, yes. Majority Floor Leader, yes. Anyway, so I wasn't even that young anymore in terms of experience, but of course, considering that those interpellating me were the Senate President, the Majority Floor Leader, it took a lot of strength for me to oppose their views, because we did have very, very different views on this. I was definitely for the availability of reproductive health supplies, and that the two gentlemen were not, to put it simply. So what happened over the course of days eventually was during the period of amendment where, as we are familiar with, we had amendments on almost every provision. And some of them were very contentious, and we had to put it to a vote. And these were the kind of votes na talagang bilangan kami. And sometimes the votes were very close. The minority floor leader also was there. By the way, he was a pro RH with me. Anyway, so at the end of the day, I lost some very important provisions, and I felt bad about it because I felt that those provisions were essential to capture the essence of the reproductive health law. But having said that, I still had to go into BICAM, and I remember so distinctly when I entered BICAM, my colleague said to me, and that included Senator Ralph Recto, our Senate President pro tem. This one was his exact words, but in similar words or gestures, the Senate President basically said the same thing to me. Pia, it is your duty to uphold the Senate version. And for me, ang hirap nun kasi I was hoping, of course, that the provisions where I lost, may pag-asang mabuhay ulit yon in BICAM. But I honor the traditions and the process in the Senate. If there's one thing that I feel helps us move forward is to give importance to these processes and the experiences and traditions that we have. So I sat in that BICAM and I said to myself, I'll make my life simple. I will just be transparent and honest. So I would say in BICAM to the House member, I agree with you personally, but that is not the Senate version. And I am duty bound to move forward on the Senate version. You can keep on saying that because I agree with you, but that is not the Senate version, and I have to argue this way. And that is how, with all due respect, I was trained by these gentlemen that I have mentioned. So it is with that experience that I carry today and every day in the Senate that I also approach this issue. I was one of those who voted against this provision simply because I'm against more firearms in the country. I'm against another agency carrying firearms. Now, I respect his honor. I also respect the chair. I will always assume that the chairman knows more than me. And that's why I stand here willing to be educated. His honor says the provisions are different. Let me read the provision that was voted down. The provision that was voted down says, this was a proposal of Senator Tolentino. I'll just go to that pertinent provision. No? Sorry? On behalf of Senator Go, Senator Tolentino proposed the insertion of this new subsection to authorize the bearing of short firearms during fire emergencies and disasters only, provided that appropriate training will be undertaken by the DILG and the Police, National Police. Long story short, this provision was, the House was divided, it was accepted, but there were objections and the House was divided. And I was one of those who did not vote for this provision, simply because and I cannot answer for the rest, but I was against authorizing the bearing of short firearms. Now, and by all means, Your Honor, please correct me if I'm wrong when I go to my next point.
Yes, go ahead.
The next point I'm going to make, now what I'm going to do is read the new provision that you were telling me off the record when we were on suspension. The new provision reads, provided further that the security and protection unit shall be provided with equipment appropriate to protect firefighters performing their mandates such as fire suppression, containing of hazmat and CBRNE materials and fire investigation. Is that the new provision inserted in BICAM? Or may iba pa?
Yes, Your Honor, this is the new provisions inserted during the BICAM.
So when you say to protect firefighters, they are still bearing firearms, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
The ones tasked to secure the firemen conducting operations are the security and protection unit of the BEP at the regional office and the city fire stations, Your Honor.
Okay, before I go into that as to who exactly is authorized under this new provision here, this provision tells a layman like me, that we are authorizing the firemen to bear arms. So I am just letting His Honor know that this provision that His Honor says is different to me as a layman, it is the same. You're allowing another entity other than the PNP, other than the armed forces, to bear arms. In that sense, I am correct, right? Does His Honor agree?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So what now are the fine distinctions that His Honor wants us, as his colleagues, to understand? Because there were 14, if I'm correct, 14 of us who voted against us. So what is the distinction now that His Honor feels would open our minds? And like I said, you want my vote, you want me to change my mind. So what are the fine distinctions now that His Honor would like to point to me to make me change my mind? Because I voted against it because I don't want them to bear arms and carry firearms. And based on this provision, they are still carrying firearms. But I will now listen to the gentleman so he can explain to me and educate me what is that distinction? Why does it make it better, or why will my fears be assuaged that there's another group, there will be more firearms out there?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for that question, Your Honor. The differences, Your Honor, or the distinctions between the two provisions, Your Honor. First is that to the numbers. The number of firearms, the number of firefighters authorized to carry firearms. Take, for example, the Novaliches fire station, Your Honor. If there are 350 firefighters under the Novaliches fire station, Novaliches City Fire Station, there are only 7 firefighters who are authorized to carry firearm in that station, Your Honor. So from 350 during the voted down provision, dito ngayon sa BICAM provision, Your Honor, ay 7 na lang sila, Your Honor. And number 2, when it comes to the function or the scope of their function, Your Honor, during the voted down provision states that the firefighters can perform police like police assistance in terms of emergency. Pwede sila lapitan ng taong bayan kung walang pulis na makikita. Pwede sila lapitan para hingan ng tulong. So parang magpa-function sila ng parang quasi-police function, Your Honor, na pwede sila magbigay ng assistance. But dito sa BICAM provision, Your Honor, hindi po ang ganyan ang function niya, kundi purely security to firefighters who are conducting fire suppression operations, yung habang may sunog, binabantayan na yung kasamahan nila na hindi masasaktan dahil maraming mga medyo nasisiraan ng ulo during sunog dahil nasusunog yung bahay nila, mangangagaw ng hose. Minsan sinasaksak yung mga fireman na ayaw ibigay yung hose sa kanila. Yung hose nila pinuputol. Yun yung security sila doon. And security during hazmat operations, yung hazardous material operations, Your Honor, kailangan i-secure yung mga firefighters na nandun at saka during fire investigation, Your Honor, conducting fire investigation. So yun lang po ang instances wherein they are allowed to carry firearms, Your Honor. Hindi po sila magpupulis-pulisan as what some of us feared, Your Honor. Hindi po sila mag-army-armihan, Your Honor. Sila po ay mag-security guard lang, Your Honor, doon sa mga kasamahan nila na nagkakandak ng operations. At pipito lang po sila, Your Honor, at any given time sa isang fire station, Your Honor. At ang fire station, Your Honor, yung city lang po. City fire station at saka regional office, Your Honor. Hindi po kasama ang provincial offices at ang municipal fire station. Na yun po pinakamaraming numbers all over the Philippines, Your Honor. So hindi po tayo matakot na magkalat ang armas doon sa mga fireman, Your Honor. Kukunti lang po sila. Kasi, Your Honor naman, ito lang po ang tanong ko sa mga kasamahan natin. Why can't we not give a little protection to those people who are giving us protection? Why Why can't we give a little protection to those firefighters who are protecting us? Kukunti lang naman yung hinihingi nila na protection, Your Honor.
Well, and I can answer that, Your Honor, because your question is in response to my question.
Yes po.
The reason I'm not inclined to give that to support that provision is because there is already a provision on page 4. This is a letter L of section, is this 2 or 3? Section 3 that gives the BFP the power to request assistance from the PNP, Armed Forces of the Philippines, and any government agency. So I assume that this being the main job of the PNP and the Armed Forces, they will be the one to give the protection. Which,
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
If I may,
of course,
yeah, like what Senator Gordon said, that para bang this is a slap to the PNP if the PNP cannot provide protection to the firemen conducting fire suppression operations. Ako naman, Your Honor, I climbed the ladder of the PNP. Naging police station commander ako sa pinakamaliit na police station hanggang sa naging chief PNP ako, Your Honor. But I didn't find it offensive doon sa PNP kapag armasan ang Bureau of Fire. In fact, ang PNP ay masasaya po, matutuwa po kapag armasan ang Bureau of Fire dahil that means pag may sunog, ang PNP can concentrate on their own job, on their own tasking, kasi alam nila mayroon nang nagsisecure doon sa, although hindi nila papabayaan yung firemen doon na pag may sunog, pero at least, suffice it to say, nakampante sila na mayroong security na kaagad doon sa syudad na kung saan may sunog dahil yung kanilang city fire station ay may na-establish na security and protection unit sa loob ng kanilang stasyon, Your Honor.
thank you for that, Mr. President, and I love your candor. But I just also have to say, it's the least of my worries about the ego of the PNP. No? So I appreciate your candor na wala sa inyo yon, but that's not my concern. I couldn't care less kung their ego is offended or not, because my job as a legislator is to ensure that we equip the right agencies with the equipment and the facilities that they need, no, and the funding that they need. So honestly, wala ho akong pakialam dyan kung anong feelings ng mga iba-ibang agency on that note. I go back to why do they have to be given arms? Can the PNP, because the way I see whether it's disaster risk or responding to emergencies, the way I see that evolving these days, it's always a complete response, no? Nandyan ang health response, whether it's an ambulance, a city ambulance, or whatever. And then nandun yung local government response, and then yung national response. So, in my limited understanding, nandyan naman talaga ang PNP to give their assistance. That is their job when it comes to security. But like I said, that is my understanding, and His Honor is of the view that the fireman should be equipped. His Honor keeps making a distinction on the number, but that's not written in the law, no? Yung sinasabi niyong is 7 an actual number or 7%? Wala naman hong ganung sa batas. So how would I know that that number is small? Yes, the law, the bill does refer now to every region and city, as well as an EMS service, provided that, and it goes on to say protect firefighters performing their mandate. So, but how would I know kung ilan ang equip nila sa region and sa city? It doesn't say. So I wouldn't know kung over time lalaki po ito.
Your Honor, this number is coming from the Bureau of Fire, Your Honor. We consulted them kung gaano ba kalaki yung gagawin ninyo na i-establish ninyo na security and protection unit. And they said, 7-man person lang yan, sir. At 2 shift yan. Every time, at any given time, may 7 kami dyan ready to secure our firefighters kung merong engagement, Your Honor. So galing po sa kanila yung number, Your Honor. Hindi po yan galing sa akin. Sa kanila po yan, Your Honor. So kung makita natin afterwards na bakit nagiging 10 o more than 7 na yung kanilang security personnel, pwede natin silang sitahin, Your Honor, as part of our oversight function dito sa bill na ito kung magiging batas man ito.
Well, siguro, Your Honor, that's an area where we could have had improved communication. Because like I said, I'm one of those who tries to have an open mind, but this is so open-ended. When His Honor insists that this provision is not the same, it still feels pretty much the same to me because the limitation His Honor mentions are not written into the law. They're not there. And so in the budget process, if this administration wants to increase the firearms and to put a chunk of it in with the firemen, there's nothing in the law that prevents that. That is my worry, Mr. President. How do you address that?
Your Honor, alam po ninyo, ang nakalagay dito sa law is creation, establishment of security and protection unit, Your Honor. Hindi naman siguro pwede gawing security and protection unit yung buong halimbawa Makati Fire Station, Your Honor. Kung aarmasan mo silang lahat, lahat na sila security and protection unit. Hindi po, Your Honor, isang unit na po yan na within the fire station, Your Honor. Kukunti lang po, 7 lang po yan. At that's coming from the Bureau of Fire, Your Honor.
Given His Honor's vast knowledge in the area of crime fighting, can His Honor educate me? Are there any rules, are there any laws that would allow the PNP to pull out these firemen who now bear arms to address them? Baliktad naman, sila naman ang ipo-pull out para tumulong sa crime busting activities nila.
Well, Your Honor, as stated in this proposed measure, very clear po yun na ang function nila ay wala pong iba kundi to provide security during fire suppression operations, hazmat operations, and fire investigation operations, Your Honor.
Sir,
So hanggang doon lang po.
Just to because you're reading this and I like it. No, ano yung CBRNE? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Say again, Your Honor.
CBRNE kasi I was following yung binabasa nyo, di ba, na what the provision says that the security and protection unit shall be provided with equipment appropriate to protect firefighters performing their mandates such as fire suppression containing of hazmat and CBRNE materials. Ano yun? Ano yun?
C, Your Honor, stands for chemical. B stands for biological. R stands for radiological. N stands for nuclear, Your Honor.
Okay. So it is possible that very clear to no that itong firearms ibibigay in the performance of their fire suppression. We've covered that.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then containment of hazmat has of course that's hazardous material. So ang function ba ng containment ng hazmat na primarily nasa fire again educate us please. Is it primarily
Yes, Your Honor.
Fire department function?
Right now, CBRNA functions are being given to the Bureau of Fire, Your Honor. They have the specialty in responding to hazmat situation, Your Honor. Hazardous material situation, Your Honor. That means hazmat. Sila po ang may training tungkol dyan. And you know, Your Honor, there are instances, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear attacks, Your Honor, were being perpetrated by terrorists, Your Honor. So, karapat-dapat lang po, kung ito'y kagagawa ng mga terorista, i-secure din natin yung ating mga bumbero na mag-responde doon sa fire scene or sa crime scene, Your Honor. Dahil nga, terrorism ito, Your Honor, related to terrorism. So, dapat lang rin na i-secure natin sila, Your Honor.
Noted on that. Mr. President, I know I've asked you this off the record, pero we want to put it on record so the people understand, no? One of the concerns we had is that if the arming of firemen is so important, so vital for their protection, what other countries in the world have done the same? Because we're not familiar, we're not aware that firemen are now bearing arms in other countries.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for that question. So far, Your Honor, in other countries, there are the arming of firemen had been allowed in some countries. In the United States alone, there are states that have authorized through legislation the carrying of concealed guns by firefighters. This include Georgia, Texas, Kansas, Ohio, New York, and Florida. Brazil has their own military firefighters apart from the civilian. This shows that the provision of the BEP modernization arming BEP personnel assigned in the security and protection unit can be feasibly done, Your Honor, legally, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to mention that there's a big difference between the U.S. and the Philippine Constitution. The U.S. gives their citizens the right to bear arms. It's a constitutional right to bear arms. And the states that you mentioned are gun, how's the proper term for that? Pro-gun. They are pro-gun states, I think, no? So there's a very big difference in treatment. The psychology, the customs and traditions we have are different. And that's very important also because when I listen to the debates in the US, paglalaban ng mga pro-gun doon is they go hunting, etc. That's why they have guns. They should not. But at the same time, they also have these mass murders happening because of the availability of guns. So again, I bring home that point. Wala rin tayong, again, I may be wrong, but not aware that we have this tradition or it's a tradition we want to inculcate, no? That we have more agencies carrying guns. So that's just a distinction that I'd like to make because it seems from His Honor's response that there really aren't any countries except for the few states that he mentioned, the US. And I'm saying that the US Constitution has that constitutional right to bear arms, which is very different from the Philippines. So, yeah. I'll wrap it up, Mr. President. My last point, simply my last point, and His Honor can just give a very quick response. His Honor was also telling me off the record, which I think is a valid point, who within the BFP would be allowed to carry arms. Kasi syempre yung concern natin, lahat ba trained yan as a bombero? Anong klaseng training yung mga papayagan nilang magdala ng arms under this provision that was inserted in the BICAM?
Your Honor, for sure, they are going to vet their personnel who are going to be assigned with the security and protection unit, Your Honor. Since pipito lang yan sila sa isang police station, kung isang police station ay may number na 350, so siguro, yung pito na yan sa police station, yan yung well-trained to carry firearms and alam nila kung paano, when and when not to use the firearm, Your Honor. Ganun po yun, sir, Your Honor. That would be part of the PNP modernization program, yung upgrading ng kailang skills and yung kanilang skills and abilities, Your Honor, to carry firearms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The majority floor leader was signing me. I'm a team player, so if it's time to give way to other matters, I will do so. Thank you very much to my colleague. Like I said, I have full respect for you as the chairperson. I will think about this. I have to admit that it's not a decision I can make in haste, but thank you very much for your explanations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer the questions.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have to move forward because we have two other important items and it's already almost 6 o'clock in the evening. So there is an objection but before we do that, I believe.
Mr. President, can I ask the majority leader to have a new roll call for the quorum, Mr.
Maybe he
President?
wants to establish a new quorum, Mr. President. So I move that we establish a new quorum by proceeding with a roll call of members, Mr.
All
President.
right, just to make sure that we are within our parliamentary rules. The motion pending is a motion to ratify,
Yes,
and the minority leader objected.
yes, correct.
All right, a quorum call is a higher precedence. So do you The minority leader is
President,
recognized.
before we recognize the minority floor leader, with the permission of the minority floor leader, we need an absolute majority of those present. So we have to be reminded of that. Meaning, if there are 22 members that are present today, the winning number
The
for the
motion.
motion to be carried is 12.
Correct.
That's correct. So it has to be half plus one. So it's not just a majority. It's not just a winning number. It has to be the majority of those
Of those
present.
present, yes.
May we recognize the
Right.
minority floor
Minority
leaders?
leader is recognized, Senator Drilon.
Well, I intimated to the Senate President in a phone conversation that Senator Ralph Recto proposed in and of the floor that maybe a compromise is that we can remit back to the bicameral conference committee the committee report so that it can be discussed again in the bicameral conference committee, because I have the transcript of the bicameral conference committee. There was no discussion at all. This was proposed by Congressman Salceda and was accepted by our panel without any discussion. That is why, after reading this and after hearing the gentleman from Batangas during the break, saying that instead of voting on the committee report, we might have a compromise wherein we remit it to the BICAM, because so that we can have a consensus. That's our submission, Mr. President, if that's possible.
Well, I will confirm the
Mr. President.
phone conversation that I had with the minority leader, and I understand the suggestion of the President pro temp. The problem is that when we conferred with the Secretariat to find out what the status of the bill in the House or the Conference Committee report, the House ratified the report, and therefore, consequently, the House panel is discharged. Now, the Senate may, at this point, may only accept or reject the bicameral conference committee report. If we recommit, there is no more House panel to speak of. So, if the Senate rejects, it goes back to the legislative status on the procedural situation it was in before the conference report. The bill will not be lost, actually,
Yes.
but it will go back to its parliamentary status, before the bicameral conference committee report.
Which
That
is
is how
to
it will be.
institute. Yes, Mr. President.
And then we can perhaps ask the House to reconvene a panel for them to designate a new House panel in case the motion to ratify is lost. So that's the parliamentary status as of now. So the request of the President pro temp to recommit it's not possible at this point because there is no longer any House panel to speak of because they ratified already. It is already discharged. All right. So Majority Leader.
So therefore,
Yes, Senator Dela Rosa, you're seeking the floor.
Yes, Mr. President. I just would like to react to the comment of the minority leader that we just accepted the amendment during the bicameral meeting, Mr. President, without discussion. I think it's unfair for the Senate panel na sabihin na walang discussion na nangyari, tinanggap na lang namin. For all you know, Mr. President, grabe ang aming tag-ubuar dyan sa provision na yan. I myself, Mr. President, ayaw ko talaga. Ayaw kong tanggapin, Mr. President. Dahil alam ko, natalo kami dito sa butuhan ng provision na yan. But in the spirit of give and take, Mr. President, dahil nga sabi nila ng counterpart namin sa House panel na yan lang ang gusto nilang maisingit. So, nag-agree kami na tanggapin namin, Mr. President. Pero grabe, Mr. President, ang aming discussion dyan. If you can ask sa Congressman Bravo, the chairman, my counterpart in the lower house, Mr. President. Matagal pong discussion namin dyan. I really fought, but with all due respect, Mr. President, I fought for the Senate version, Mr. President. But sabi nga nila, bycam ito, kailangang bigayan, give and take. So, pinagbigyan ko, Mr. President.
Okay.
We'll have to.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, we'll go for the previous motion to establish the quorum. I so move.
All right. The Secretariat is hereby directed to call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators. Angara,
Present.
Binay,
Present.
Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
Present.
Gatchalian, Go,
Roll call po
Ano ito?
Gordon,
Present.
Hontiveros,
Present.
Lacson, Lapid,
Present.
Marcos,
Present.
Pacquiao, Pangilinan,
Present.
Pimentel III,
Present.
Poe,
Present.
Recto,
Present.
Revilla Jr.,
Present.
Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar,
Present.
Zubiri.
Present.
The Senate President Soto III is present. Huh? Oh, Pacquiao, go.
These are the members who responded to the call. 8 senators physically present and 13 senators virtually present for a total of 21. The chair declares the presence of a quorum of 21.
How many members, Mr. President? Sorry, I was
21.
21, so the absolute majority of that will be 11.
Of any
Ano?
motion to
12
be
pa rin.
approved, of any
Half of 20.
motion to be approved is 11. Huh?
What is the one is late? Senator
Money
Maki
is
is there,
counted. He's
therefore,
counted. He's counted here. No.
not yet.
All right.
22.
So
22, I think.
22.
Therefore, 12 members are necessary, Mr. President, for
22.
an absolute majority.
22, including Senator Pacquiao.
Yes.
14 senators virtually present and 22, 8 on the floor. 22.
Mr. President, I move for
Hirap.
nominal voting. I move for nominal voting. Mr.
Dali na
President.
kanina.
Yes, I move for nominal voting.
All right. The nominal vote on the motion of the Senator De La Rosa to ratify the BICAM report. All those in favor will say yes, and those against will say nay. Nominal vote. Proceed.
Roll call vote, Honorable Senators. Angara,
Yes.
Binay,
No.
Cayetano, abstain. De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon,
No.
Gatchalian, Go, Gordon,
Gordon.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I probably should my microphone. I vote no, Mr. President.
no. Hontiveros,
Nay.
Lacson, Lapid,
Yes.
Marcos,
Sorry, yes.
Pacquiao, Pacquiao,
Yes. Yes, Mr. President.
Pangilinan,
No.
Pimentel III,
Yes.
Poe,
No.
Recto,
No.
Revilla Jr.,
Yes.
Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar,
Yes.
Zubiri,
I abstain.
Senate President Soto III.
I abstain. I will explain why.
Eleven. He has to get 12. Bongo na wala.
11 sa 22. There are 11 affirmative votes, 8 negative votes, 3 abstention. The motion is lost.
Yes, Mr. President. For the record, may we know who were not able to vote?
For the record, well, the parliamentary status, therefore, will be the committee report going back to the committee. All right? Now, as far as the presiding officer is concerned, the reason that I abstain is because I had to balance the two issues. First of all, we did not, the sense of the report was, a content of the sense of the report was voted down. Not the exact provision, but a sense of the, so that's difficult for me. It has never been done. And when it is done, it is against the mandate that the Senate gave the chairman. All right? Now, but on the other hand, I wanted to support the chairman because of his report. And that is the reason that I was torn and I had to abstain. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, myself as well may explain. I share your exact sentiment. I want to modernize the BFP. I'm also a co-author of this measure. It's just that we had this particular provision. We voted against it during the session several weeks ago. And but however, as I said, no, I really tried my best to ask the panel maybe to reconsider this measure. But the bill is not lost. The status, Mr. President, is once we come back on July, we can ask the House. We can reconstitute the BICAM, and we can ask the House to do the same and reconsider their version, Mr. President. But you're absolutely correct. The motion is lost.
Yes, we will request the House of Representatives for a new panel, a new set for a panel. Senator Cayetano.
Mr. President, I also share the same sentiments as His Honor, the Senate President. I'm torn. I support the modernization of the BFP. I support His Honor, the chairperson. But I really had issues with the bearing of arms. And in particular, I do feel strongly about the parliamentary process that must be observed. I feel strongly that even though we disagree, we must honor the practices we have and be able to put our faith in the chairperson when they go into BICAM. I've experienced it myself. I shared my own personal recollection of how I also was tormented by having to fight for provisions that I personally did not agree with. But that is how we work in the Senate, Mr. President. And I would like to believe that moving forward, we can all learn from this lesson, Mr. President. So with that, I had to abstain. Thank you.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr. President.
Sino yun?
Mr. President. Just
Senator Villanueva.
yes, Mr. President. Just a very short explanation of vote. I voted no for consistency, but I would also like to put on record our respect and commendation to the author for his passion on this particular measure. With a heavy heart, I voted no for obvious reasons, Mr. President. I just have to be consistent with our position on bearing arms of our firefighters. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Majority Leader.
Mr. President.
Senator who? Senator
President,
Bongo is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Hindi yata nabilang yung boto ko kanina, nawawala yung signal. Though talo na po kahit na nabilang na yung boto ko. Anyway, Mr. President, security has been a serious concern of the BFP when its personnel respond to fire incidents due to unruly evacuees. Security and protection for BFP personnel is also needed in the conduct of fire and arson investigations. It would be best if they have their own security and protection unit. Hindi naman po ito para sa buong BFP, Mr. President. This is just a unit within the BFP. Yung ibang mga BFP po ay mga PNPA graduates po yan. Hinahati lahat. PNP graduates po. At same training po yan at marunong po yung humawak ng baril. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin nito ay bibilhan po lahat ng Bureau of Fire ng baril. Maaring 50 lang sila sa isang unit o maaring 100 lang po sila sa isang unit. At ang aking pinaglalaban dito, Mr. President, dahil pareho naman po silang na-train rin po katulad ng pulis. At nakikita ko mismo, ako bumababa po ako sa mga nasunugan. Wala po silang armas, paano nila aawatin kung mga siraulo doon na magtangkang magnakaw po, Mr. President. Anyway, tapos na po at natalo naman po. Ang amin lang dito ay sana po bigyan sana natin sila ng pagkakataon. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 yan. Maaring 50 lang po, maaring 100 lang po yung security and protection unit. Sa ating good sponsor, salamat sa yung pakikipaglaban sa ating mga bumbero. At kasama niyo po ako rito, good sponsor, sa pakikipaglaban sa ating mga bumbero. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Dear
President.
Leader, can you repeat the result of the voting?
Review the result of the voting. All right. There were 11 who voted in favor. There were 8 who voted against, and there were 3 abstentions.
So was Senator Go counted sa 11?
No, he was not. He did not answer the call of the roll, and during the voting, he was not there also.
There's something wrong with his di ba?
The signal po, kanina po.
Oh yes, Mr. President.
Well,
but we're not all
if you
here.
put it, I don't think we should put it that way because if you're going to put it that way, you'll have to be here present physically so that your vote will be counted. Well, hindi ganun.
Mr. Senate President, may I answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
They don't allow seniors to go out of the home. In fact, maku-question kayo yung mga seniors
That's not what I mean.
Pag sinasabi mo palagi na dapat na andito kayo, we should consider that we cannot get out. Kayo, senior, nakakalabas kayo, you take the risk of being questioned. Because under the protocol, the seniors cannot go out of their homes.
Your Honor, I was not pertaining to anyone except Senator Go. I was pertaining. I was pertaining to Senator Go because he was not here. He was not online during the vote.
Mr. Senate President, I'm not talking of Mr. Go now. I'm just talking that you always say that you should be here. How can we be there? We're seniors. We're not allowed to get out of our home. Maswerte ka na senior ka na andyan ka, pinapayagan ka. Pero kung malagay tayo sa dyaryo na mga senior tayo, dahil senador tayo, lumalabas tayo sa bahay natin, di ba pangit din tingnan yun? That's my question, because you always say that you're not always here, as if you give special attention to those who goes there. But remember, we're seniors.
I take exception to what you are saying, Senator Villar, because you should listen to what I'm saying. I was pertaining to Senator Go. If you were absent, if you're not online, you could have been here. Now, if you're not here, physically present, therefore, you are not online, therefore, you're not present, you're not absent. Ay, ibig ko sabihin, kung offline ka, wala kang connection, wala kang internet, mas mabuti na andito ka. Kung physically present ka, mabibilang ka. Pero dahil wala kang connection, wala kang internet, hindi ka mabibilang. As not pertaining to the seniors. As a matter of fact, Senator Bongo is not a senior. Oh. So he should be here. Well, I take exception to what you're saying. Baka alam mo, pinariringgan ko kayo. Hindi ko kayo pinariringgan. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. You are seniors. I was pertaining to Senator Bongo and the vote. Session suspended.